All right. Hello and welcome to the Miracle Morning for Network Marketers audio series / podcast, depending on where you might be finding this information and this content at the moment. My name is Pat Petrini. I'm the co-author of the #1 best-selling book, The Miracle Morning for Network Marketers. And in creating this book, we reached out to some of the very top network marketers in the world, and we interviewed them, some of the top performers, both people that have been around the network marketing world for years and even decades, as well as people that are fairly newcomers that have just been around for the last few years, but have had extreme success in those just those last few years. And we reached out, we interviewed them. That's what this series is all about. You're going to hear interviews from a number of different people. And in these interviews, we dive into not only their tips, strategies, techniques, things that have really accelerated their business, but also, and of course this was sort of the thesis, the theme of the book is the Miracle Morning for Network Marketers. We delve into their morning routines and their daily rituals, things that they consider to be critical for success that are really important for them to do every single day. And what we found, the whole concept of the Miracle Morning is that not every successful person does all of these different things every day, but just about every successful person does some of these things every day, has some of these daily rituals, oftentimes morning rituals, and so we dive into that in this audio series. Now, if you're not familiar with the book, you can check out the book, of course, at Amazon. Just go to Amazon and search for The Miracle Morning for Network Marketers. You'll find it right there. And then, of course, you can also go to our website. You may be listening to this recording right there on our website, but if you're not, if you're finding it somewhere else, go to tmm4networkmarketers.com. That's TMM, like the Miracle Morning, FOR, networkmarketers.com. Again, my name is Pat Petrini. I hope you're going to enjoy this interview. I know you're going to enjoy this interview. You might want to have a pen and paper handy, and on with the show. Thanks a lot. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning into this call, and I'm really excited for us to be on here. I've got a great interview that we're excited to share with everybody here. I'm honored to have the one and only amazing Ann Sieg on the line with me. Ann, are you there?
I am here. Thanks so much for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for being on the call. And just for everybody tuning in, where are you calling in from, Ann?
I am calling in from St. Paul, Minnesota.
I love it. And Ann, of course, people kind of heard the intro that I put on at the beginning of this, but give us a little bit of background on yourself, not, even maybe before network marketing, kind of where you grew up and kind of how did you get started in business in general.
Okay, yep, certainly. I grew up in Eagan, Minnesota, and I was introduced to direct sales. Well, I was going to say when I was 21, actually sooner than that. Basically, when I was 7 years old, my grandma taught me how to knit Christmas bells. And it was a lot of fun. I'm making my little Christmas bells. And then my mom said, Ann, you can go around the neighborhood and sell those things. And so my mom helped me, would put the bells in this nice little paper box thing. And I can literally visualize this entire experience like it was yesterday. But, just to preface and say, back in those days, neighborhoods safer and parents could send their parents out. That's how it was done back then. There wasn't all the big parental supervision that we find today. But all to say, I went out in the neighborhood, little girl knocking on the door, and all I would do is show my wares, my little Christmas bells, and by golly, I sold every single one of them. I came home, I had the cover back on, and I'll never forget the sound. There was this sound when you shook the box. It was the sound of coins and dollar bills. And I think I charged 75 cents for one and 3 for $1, if I remember correctly. But it was such a wonderful experience. And I can't say then the rest of my upbringing was all centered around that. It was actually the sports world I got into very heavily, into the sport of gymnastics. I became a coach for 15 years and helped run a sports gym, and I absolutely loved those years with tremendous fondness, thinking back to those years. I only quit because after a while my hands couldn't take it. I got tendonitis and whatnot. But so it was about 21 I was introduced to Mary Kay Cosmetics, and I had a free facial. And so then when I was introduced to it more at a business level, I was actually at a little event where, I'm trying to think it was called, it was some kind of a local parade where then there'd be vendors. So one gal was giving away free facials. And then she followed up with me, and I ended up joining and doing that business. So I was pregnant with my second child. And so that is, time-wise, that's 27 years ago. So I was pregnant with my second child. That was my first more, formally doing direct sales.
Right.
And it was, I have to say, everything I look at is an experience. Yes, I set certain goals and objectives, but always, because I was raised by educators, it's always, what am I going to learn from this, and how does this deepen my experience for the next opportunity that comes my way. So I'll just say it didn't end up being as successful as I thought, but that's okay. I then wanted to do House of Lloyd, Christmas Around the World, loved Avon, absolutely loved Avon, but they're not very scalable is a big issue there. But then I got introduced to network marketing, lo and behold.
Meaning like when you say not too scalable, like it's kind of just you out there selling, sort of like one-to-one,
right.
One-to-one sales. Yeah.
And I was not building an organization with any of those. It was pure, direct sales. And I also, within that scope, always had, I believe very strongly in the family economy. So my children, they would help me, my little boys, when I'd always find ways for them to help me, like bag the little Avon catalogs and then go out in the neighborhood with me and hang them on the doors. So I thought, this is real life here. This is not, let me plop you out in front of the TV and you sit there, a little sunny boy, while I run off and try to make some money for the family. No, we're going to do this as a team. So it's always raising my, and then there too, no wonder that I have a family business with my eldest son, and my youngest son works with me as well. But I'll just say, the direct sales, no focus on the team building. But then when my eldest son at age 18 introduced me into network marketing business, now I had a whole different interest. The previous ones were you sell some stuff and then you get a commission check for selling the stuff, a certain percentage. But then my son, when he introduced me, I was very open to something that I thought would be far more scalable. So it was a company that had a whole different line of products, but I focused on the nutritional. And so I got into that and I hit top retailer in my state, and I just I love sales. I love selling stuff. I think it's one of the funnest, most rewarding things. I find it very energizing. I do like competition, and it's very rewarding. So that's how I did with the retail sales. Now, when it comes to the team building, not so much. And they had a supposed business plan that was proven that if you did their business plan, you would hit $109,000 a year. So I worked really, 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 really hard on building a team. I mean, you name it, I did it all. I mean, I hit on everybody. There was no one for whom I would not, hit on.
Yeah.
And yet the net effect of that was not producing the outcome that I thought would happen. And I found out, there's resistance in the marketplace because, historically we know MLM started here in the States. And as people go out and do that kind of particular methodology, unless you're really, really good or you have a very highly influential Rolodex, you can run into challenges. So that was the case. And yet, not to be deterred, I thought, okay, I'm just going to look for different ways. And it was my eldest son who had then since quit, so to speak, because people weren't taking an 18-year-old seriously to earn $100,000 income. So he started to learn online marketing, and especially affiliate marketing. In fact, he, by age 21, was the top affiliate marketer for Best Western Plus. Anyways, there I am, pursuing this dream, and it just wasn't panning out the way I thought it would. And I was raised by a scientist, so I think very kind of logically, if this, then that, and all that. And I thought, when I sought the advice of my upline at that time, they said, well, Ann, you just need to start all over again. And I thought, you know what? You speak no logic here. It made no sense because I had already called those people 3, 4, 5 times over, and which was a very embarrassing kind of a thing and humiliating, but I was driven and motivated. So anyways, I'm relating this to my son. He said, Mom, you need to go online and you need to find out who your target market is. Get in front of the right target market. I'm like, what? My company never told me anything about a target market. They said everybody was my prospect.
Right.
So that was very revolutionary, and so I did follow that advice, and then it was as a result of that, just doing a simple Google search, that completely altered the way in which I built my business. And that is to say, I then learned how to build a business online. So we've generated over $20 million in sales online since that time through a whole variety of products, as well as different MLMs and whatnot. And it's a life skill, and it's in my pocket, in my back pocket, contrary to if I built it all around one entity, which I've done time and time again, and then I learned a hard lesson that those entities, in fact, many come and go. And so I've always, since that time, put myself in a favorable position of, no, I'm going to build my list, which is my asset, and then I'll refer them to whatever I deem, what I want to refer folks to. Right. So it was a real eye-opening learning experience. It was nowhere anything that I thought I'd end up doing, but there you have it. So online, I've done numerous different network marketing opportunities as well. Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I'm just so excited to have you as part of this project, and because of really bringing that perspective, the online marketing perspective. I think that's a really one thing that you just mentioned that is kind of your strategy that's very different. There's a lot of people that a lot of leaders out there that very much tie themselves to a company, a brand name or something like that. Your focus is building your own brand, and that may feed into all kinds of different things that you choose that to feed into.
Correct.
So talk to me about I definitely want to get into a little bit more about kind of your path to learning online marketing, but actually maybe just giving everybody you've got your hands in a lot of different I don't know, you have a lot of different projects going on. You're an author, you're a coach, give everybody a little bit of maybe an overview of some of your main projects or the different areas that you're involved in right now.
Oof, I do have my hands in a lot of projects.
Yeah.
The foundation is I've authored 3 different books. And so those books are basically me relating my story of my journey of what happened when I came online. As you mentioned, the branding, the positioning, etc. The sum of that concept is, rather than being out in the marketplace pitching stuff, position yourself as a resource and information person, regardless of whether it's about the opportunity or if it's about the product itself, because people are out there searching for information, and you want to be found in that scope of people searching for solutions to their problem. So that's basically the positioning concept that I teach through my books. And my first experience was I shifted into a different MLM, all because of a mentor that I found when I first came online. I became the top performer. I accounted for about 80% of the company volume. It was not a huge company, but we grew very, very rapidly. That whole scaling factor is so there when you build online. And so that worked really well, but it also taught me a really big lesson in that I then had the rug pulled out from underneath me. And there's that thing in biology called imprinting, which, it's kind of like that thing of your first impression.
Right.
And imprinting in the biological sense means when an animal is born a child, they get imprinted to the first critter they see, they view as their mother. But I'll just say the imprinting here relative to that experience was, wow, there's nothing very safe or sure here. And so it all solidified, furthermore, that positioning that I have of building my own list, which means people opt in to receive something free from me. And then from there, you build what's called a marketing funnel. And then this last year, we have expanded into the deep, deep blue oceans of e-commerce. And so as a result of that, and I became the top performer in a company related to that, and won a kind of a cool prize. It was a Jaguar. I'm not into fast cars, but it was a nice, pretty car. But anyways, more so, we deepened then our certification program, and now we have a fleet of e-commerce coaches and consultants. And we do ongoing workshops. We anticipate we'll do 4 this coming year, and we've done all told about 10. And the concept of our workshops is much more of a interactive experience. You've got your laptop. You are in work mode. It's not set up classroom style and you're scrunched between people and you can barely write on your notebook. I'm all about the whole learning experience and getting people into work mode so they can get to the results faster. So that's proving to be very, very successful, the consulting and the coaching. So, So yeah, I'm busy.
So you're just oozing with free time, just all over the place.
Super big margins of it, and I'm building an MLM too.
I love it. And so now I've seen you have a lot of videos on YouTube. There's a lot of people can go to YouTube and see a lot of your coaching videos and also your students and everything around there. They can learn a lot about your coaching program that's available. Obviously, I know that when we were talking earlier, well, I guess let me say this. What would you say, aside, obviously joining your coaching program would be a great way for somebody to start. What do you think that if somebody is wanting to really kind of learn the ins and outs of like online marketing, if they're wanting to figure out how to take their network marketing business in that direction, what are sort of like the key skills that they need to learn? What are some great places for them to start?
Well, I would say fundamentally, first is to understand the concept of it. And I don't think anything does a better job of that than my book called The Renegade Network Marketer, because it is with deep illustrations of helping people understand, because it is a mind shift to even understand this particular model. So I would definitely start with that book, because I've had numerous people at different training events say, Ann, it was your book. It wasn't until I read your book. I've been through so many other training platforms. And, so it just really helps make clear that particular model. I think that for myself, unless I get the model in the 30,000-foot view, it's hard to bring it down to the pragmatic, practical manner of it. But in some essence, it's really quite simple. A marketing funnel consists of, you have to have a free offer. Now, you don't have to. You could start with a paid offer. The challenge there is to bring someone, especially cold traffic, to a point of sale. Just the conversion rates are too low to then afford your paid advertising cost. So typically what you do, you start with a free offer. Now that can be a squeeze page, or it is on a blog where you have a free offer. The whole discussion of different forms of advertising, etc., it's a big, big discussion. But in essence, you have to have the free offer, and people then opt in. And all an opt-in means is they get sold via your copy, whatever your offer is. Hey, get my 3 training videos on how to set up a blog in 10 minutes. Okay, so let's just say that's the offer. Then you're going to ask your visitor to put in their username and password. Okay, that's magic, because that's where the trust is starting to develop, and they're basically giving you permission to contact them again. Think about that. I mean, that's such a profound event to happen online. Wow, I like what this guy has or this gal, and I'm going to give them my name and email address. Okay, there you start to build your list. And that list means you can email them multiple times with multiple different offers. And my list has served me very, very, very well. I've made millions of dollars through my list. So you have your list, and then you move them into a point of sale. Now, we do that on a thank you page. In fact, sometimes we'll even do upsells, and so that we're able to monetize the traffic. So you get them to opt in for your free offer. They are now in your autoresponder, which is a tool, a mechanism for which you can either send them pre-written emails known as an email sequence, or you can do broadcasts. Those are one-off emails that you send your group, your following. So then you got to bring them to a point of sale, and that's why you're doing that. And then, of course, on the front end is traffic. And traffic comes in many, 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 many different forms. It is not just social media. That's just one form. There's also cold traffic where you pay advertising, etc. So just to recap, you have to have that free offer. Your you've got something that you've researched and you determine your niche category and whatnot. And so you put together an offer that fits that audience. They opt in. You move them through the sales funnel until they make a purchase. And of course, you have to have traffic to drive into it. Does that help?
Yep, absolutely. And so what about like, as far as just learning, what would you, if somebody is to kind of learn some of this stuff, what are some maybe resources or places for them to, how does somebody start kind of just figuring all this stuff out?
Okay, so the book, number one. Secondly,
Yep.
is my daily marketing coach training platform. Now, I want to give a caveat. It is very important that you learn from someone who has proven results, because marketing is a very dynamic space. It's very fluid. It's changing and all this and that. So there are foundation, immutable aspects of it that will never change, like the funnel I just described, everyone. Traffic sources change. But so my key point is make sure you're learning from someone who's not only already been proven and tested in the field with results, but they continue to market in the marketplace. So, for example, we have a funnel we've been working on for about 7 months. It's an extremely deep, extensive funnel. So why is that important? Because you got to always be testing new things. So I'll just say the daily marketing coach is on that premise. One, you're getting daily feedback. It is about marketing, and there's coaching. And you're learning from someone who, by the way, my team, it's an 8-person staff. We are doing this actively all the time. And it's not like, well, 10 years ago I did this, and therefore I am still an expert. No, things age too fast. So we're constantly doing our own marketing. But it would be daily marketing coach. And I have to say, if anyone's really serious about it, they should go straight into total funnel immersion. And my members who are in there speak to it and say, just Ann, really, that's where they need to be. And there they get what are called daily check and adjust calls with my fleet of experts, the 30-minute calls. And it's a very extensive program, not just focused on marketing, but by golly, if you don't have leadership, you don't have anything, because your leadership is manifested via your marketing or lack thereof. So the leadership aspect, we have a leadership development component to it that's very significant as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely, and I think when I look back to my successes in my life, I can easily point to who my mentor was at that for each of those kind of different successes. That I really think it's really important. I know that you had said this in when we were kind of prepping for this interview, that one of the keys is just having a mentor that you're working with. And certainly, obviously, that applies to online marketing because, like you said, things are changing just constantly. I mean, people will be listening to this call months after we're recording it right now. But, I mean, just now, Facebook has announced that they're changing all these things, and Google's constantly changing how they're, rating things, and all this kind of stuff is just constantly changing as far as how you can reach people. So if you're working with somebody that was successful 5 years ago, that's just not going to work today in the online world, especially. Okay, so let me ask you this: as far obviously choosing a company is an important piece for somebody that's diving into network marketing. For you as an online marketer, there are some things that are really important to you that are a little bit different. What are some of the things that are really critical to you as far as like picking a company?
Well, first and foremost on my book, or my list, I should say, because I'm an online marketer, I need to know if the company will allow me to market online. Otherwise, I'm totally hamstrung. And the reason for that is I package what's called an offer. In other words, I'm never just selling a product or just selling a service. I package an offer, and an offer has a lot of unique elements to it. There can be a time sensitivity to it. It can be added bonuses. There's all sorts of different elements that factor into packaging an offer. If I can't do that, I'm hamstrung for being able to really get big sales volume, because in marketing, people respond to those triggers, those sales triggers that are embedded into what's called an offer. So I'm never just selling a juice product or, this or that. I package things into an offer to induce people into it because it's unique. It's different, which leads me to the next one is the ability to be able to differentiate in the marketplace, which what I'm talking about here is just solid, basic, fundamental marketing practices, which distributors oftentimes just flat aren't told or taught. Oftentimes companies don't even know these kind of fundamentals. And furthermore, it's more you're all in brown suits, all saying the same speak, and it just doesn't work that way in marketing. So I want to make sure that I can package my own offer, make it unique, make it, be able to differentiate so that someone will choose me over someone else. And especially that is so needful in the network marketing space because when you get down to it, there's a lot of distributors to choose from, especially when it comes down to that team building side, for which many network marketers do evaluate in that scope of they want to be very favorably positioned to get the best situation and dynamic to lead them to success. So they do something called sponsor shopping.
Right.
Timing, very important. This is all relative to each individual. For me, because I've been online so long and I can see kind of the lay of the land and where there's been fatigue in the marketplace. And those dynamics are much easier to track online than offline per se. But I don't want a product that yields a ho-hum boring effect. I don't even want to give examples of products and services because I don't want to offend any of the listeners here.
Sure.
But, this would be personal on my end that, for example, you talk about skincare and nutritional to me, so not interested because I've done it, and it's just for me personally, that would be boring. But for someone else, it could be a perfect fit for them because they're really knowledgeable on the topic and whatnot. But that timing is important, especially online. You do have to consider that because the patterns of the timing are much more pronounced online. So you have to be much more aware of them or your campaign could really bomb because you don't know the trends that are out there. And then absolutely critical and foundation, does it have proven market demand? You may think it does, and in your own world because you are that end consumer, but in reality, it may not have high enough market demand. So those are a handful of the things that I consider.
Yes. And so I guess just out of curiosity, as an online marketer, do you have a preference? There are, obviously lots of, probably most network marketing companies out there are selling physical products, and then there are network marketing companies that are doing like info products and things like that. Do you have a preference of one or the other, or is it more totally depends on like the type of physical product?
I have to say overall, I have gone more in the direction of information marketing or programs than physical products. I am still in an MLM that I've been in for 7+ years that I love. I'm not an active builder any longer, but it's physical and I love the product. I use it all the time. But yeah, I would have to say overall, I do more of the information marketing, though now I've expanded into the e-commerce space, which is all pure physical product. Well, I shouldn't say pure. I take that back, but vast majority. And my preference would be to sell physical products via e-commerce, hands down, over network marketing because the margins are that much better, quite frankly.
Yeah. So shifting gears here. Obviously, we are have created here the Miracle Morning for network marketers. So let me start dive into a little bit about your morning routine. If you could, I actually like when we were prepping for this interview. I know you had said that your morning routine really kind of starts the night before. Walk us through it.
Okay. Well, and this, I think I'd been doing it for years. My mom modeled a lot of this. I am a list maker, a task, maker, so to speak, in that I want to hit the ground running in the morning. So what I do, this is nigh on to religion, so to speak, just for the fact I do it so regularly. And that is I make a list of my to-dos for the next day and I prioritize them. I do them by urgency and also in terms of income producing activities. I'll even go so far. This is because I do have a pretty big workload. I'll even go so far as to do estimated time. So as I'm writing out my list, I'll gauge, because I do believe this is a significant business activity that all good business owners ought to do and know, is I want to make pre-calculated decisions with my time allocations, because at the end of the day, that's the only thing we can't really scale. I can get more money, I can get more of this, that, and the other thing, but I can't get more time. So I try to train myself to make these business calculations of, well, I got this project, how long is it going to take me? And then I'll do that into my to-do list. This is at the end of the evening. I'm relaxing with my husband. I've got my feet up, and I'm doing my list. And it takes me maybe 10 minutes or so. And I look at yesterday's, move over what I need to, etc. But regarding the timing, because I liken myself to a business athlete. I came from the athletic world. And so it's athleticism. At the end of the day, business it's a measure of your athleticism. It's of a different stripe in nature, and your physicality definitely factors into it. So I'll just say I have my iPhone is like a second part of my body and this and that, but I then time myself. So, okay, here I am. I've got to write an email sequence. I estimated X amount of time, and then I time myself. So that's part of it is I want to hit the ground running. The other part is just from a physiological basis, is you want to load up your brain. There's the ant brain and the elephant brain. So the ant brain is the executive brain, and the elephant brain is the subconscious. Now, when you understand the dynamics of how your brain works, you want to play to that makeup rather than being unknowing of how to play to the strengths of your biological wiring and setup. You want to know what it is. So the ant brain, the executive, you have far more control over it than you realize once you made awareness of it. So the way I can get my filing cabinets all set up in advance, because your brain during the night is doing a tremendous amount of work while you're resting. Your brain is starting to do a whole bunch of sifting and sorting on your behalf. It's making connections and all this kind of thing. So I want to play to the way my brain has been set up. So I load up my brain the night before, and so that during the night, things are taken care of. See, that's called leverage. And I can't tell you how many times, I'm thinking yesterday, something very distinctly, I woke up and I went, boom. And it was something, it was like, man, so glad I thought of that. Well, because I'm conscientious of this loading system. So I load up the night before, and I assure you, your neurons are working quite happily during the night while you're sleeping. But the ant brain has stepped in the night before to say, hey, listen up here, guys. And so I deck it out. Also, what you read, as many of you have probably known and are aware of, what you read, what those images, all that kind of stuff, before you go to sleep. Very, very important. So my list thing, so I hit the ground running, and by the way, I'm not a morning person. That I do think that is physiological. Some people are larks and some people are owls. I've never been a lark. And I think that's just pure biology, because when I worked out as a gymnast, my workouts in late afternoon, awesome. Early morning, no way. And that's always been my wiring, and so I don't work against that and force myself to be who someone else is. I play to what my biological wiring is. But all to say, so that's what I do the night before. And then in the morning.
On that real quick, before we get into your morning, I know you had mentioned that Charles Schwab, I think you said, right? That talks about that as far as running stuff through your mind the night before so that you're more organized in the morning. I was just at a seminar last weekend that there's some other huge industry type. It might have been Henry Ford, I can't remember, that also said the same thing, that part of their nightly routine was to really concentrate on a problem that they're facing and asking their brain to basically saying, hey, work on that for me. And they would look for the answer in the morning. And said that it was a massively successful practice for them.
Yeah. And two, I do everything digitally, and I'm always at my keyboard and all that, but I can't say enough there are aspects where you really ought to have pen and paper in hand and you're feeling the paper because it goes to a deeper neurological level.
Right.
The physicality. It'd be like a kid trying to learn spelling. You have him do it in the sandbox. He's writing in the sand. It's touching more sensors, more proprior. It's been a while since I took kinesiology, but proprioceptors, I think is the name. You're just firing more neurons, therefore further embedding that into your memory. So, I write my list out, and then, I'm thinking about my business when I go to sleep, and I think about it when I wake up, too, gotta say.
Yeah. Yep.
My business feeds me.
And so you are, you said, don't consider yourself a morning person. What time do you normally wake up, and then what's your routine kind of look like from there?
I get up around 7:30 or 8, and I do get 8 hours of sleep. And I have read stats relative to that, and I understand where people are short on time, and so they cut on their sleep. I end up being a really crabby person is kind of the main deal, and I just need it. But even studies that I've read since are that it's harmful. You are not restoring your cells and all that. But so I get over 8 hours of sleep, and I don't feel guilty about it or anything. And I start around 7:30 or 8. Is when I get up. So I'm not the super early to rise person. My husband, and I'll tell you why. Part of it is driven by just our marriage makeup is my husband likes to stay up later. So it's to accommodate his schedule so we have more time together. So that's a factor too.
Mm-hmm. And then how about once you do get up, what's your typical first hour or two kind of look like of your day?
Well, I will say I am at work within the hour. That is for sure.
Yep.
And it is nice because I work from home, so it doesn't take much there. But I do like to have a quiet time and just to be able to reflect. I read the Bible in the morning, so that's just where I'm at. I know everyone has other things that they read and whatnot. I do really love the book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. I can't recommend that book highly enough. Power of Concentration is another awesome book, and Think and Grow Rich, of course. The main thing I really want to focus on are always to rest in a spirit of gratitude. It'll make or break you in business because business is wrought with perils. I can guarantee you anyone who's gotten to success, they have gone through so many rocks and boulders and this kind of a thing to get to where they are. It's just the fact and the nature of business. And so I always want to remain grateful that I even have the opportunities that I have. How about even as basic as I have fresh water? I get to eat wholesome, good food. I get to have a warm roof over my head. And I never want to lose sight of that. It might sound so ridiculous and childish to focus on these kind of things, but honestly, what percentage of the world even has the opportunity to do what we do? Not everybody does. There's about 3 billion who don't even have the access to the resources that we have. So anyways, gratitude, and also always being deemed as a person of increase. That everyone you touch and become in contact with, you impart that you bring increase into their life. That's a lot from Wallace Wattles there. And it's true. We have been blessed with minds with a creative and problem-solving process that is a wonder to behold. We have been gifted that, but sadly that gets squelched. And the reality is, more often than not, every solution that besets mankind is actually available to us. So again, gratitude. If you don't have that, you're not going to make it. And I want to be a person of increase.
Yeah, I love it. Now, do you do actually like any like formal kind of meditation at all? Is that part of your routine? Just curious. I've been listening to a lot of people on that topic lately.
I can't say meditation in probably the context of the 21st, American. I will pray, as in, and that is repeatedly throughout the day, which my prayers are sometimes to myself, just, self-talk, and sometimes it's aloud and this and that. It's usually just either a prayer of reaching out for help or of gratitude, one of the two. But in terms of, I think of meditation. Sometimes people think of yoga and whatnot. No, I don't do those regularly. Quite honestly, I should do more of the calming state kind of practices, which I think meditation does give you, because I run at such an incredible high energy level, and I've been told, bring it down, bring it down. And so if when I am in more in that meditation thing, it is of that, well, one, we have to work at a high energy level at the same time to live in the ebb and flow and the yin and yang of life, so to speak, is to be able to come down into a calm state as well. And, really, honestly, on that answer, for me, it's working out. That's when my endorphins get released. So that's my high and more, if you want to call it a meditation, that's my release. I can't even say what that does for me. I grew up with working out, and I feel awful like sludge if I'm not working out. But when I'm working out, and especially when I'm stretching, because I was a gymnast, so stretching is like I'm going into a peaceful state. My eyes are closed. I guess that's probably the closest of more of that meditative state is it's just like I'm on cloud nine. I'll see you later. That's when I'm working out.
What you obviously grew up as an athlete, as a gymnast. What kind of what is working out or exercise for you these days?
I have a gym membership and I have a personal trainer, so I do the weights, which I'm really, really liking. And I also, for me, it's like doing the rowing machine, doing the stair climber, getting the aerobic going. I'll try and do 40 minutes of that. The best is, this is meditative too. I live by the Mississippi. No, I don't like cold weather, so I don't go down there when it's cold. But in the warm months, it's just like I find peace and solace. I go down by the river, I take my walk, and I'll lay down on a bench and just be in the sun. And I'm just soaking it in, just the peace, the calm, the solace. Being in nature is a very calming, healing effect. And just for me personally, being by water, which, by the way, there are certain chemicals that are released, especially from pine trees. And when they say people have their big brainstorm taking a shower, it's because there's a certain chemical release. I can't think, doctor told me this. And I'm like, that explains it, because I do have so many eureka moments when showering. But water is a very extremely soothing force for me. I can't even, it's a limbic brain kind of thing. I can't even fully describe it. So, I don't necessarily, it's not like, I'm saying and I'm meditating in the yoga pose thing.
Sure, right.
It's not that. It's more the nature walk down by the river. It's working out. Quite honestly, it's where I get to have a break for my brain from the high, intense workload that I do. As silly as it sounds, I love mundane house chores. Washing the dishes, love it. I tell my husband, please don't do the dishes. I like, don't do that. It's like robbing me of my peace time because I'm doing something that's mundane and my brain gets to relax. The other thing is working in the yard. I love working in the yard. It's just a nice stark contrast to being in front of a computer and doing all that work. It's like I get to defrag and decompress. Right.
Yeah, I love it. Let me, I guess, you mentioned already a few books that you really love. What do you think, if I add, this may be the same books that you already mentioned, Think and Grow Rich, but what do you think are some of the books that have had just the biggest impact on you?
Hands down, Robert Kiyosaki's books, Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, we've owned multiple businesses, and even reading those books, especially Cash Flow Quadrant, really changed my perspective of, Brian, we're still in S. We're in the S quadrant. And he's looking at me like, what in the world are you talking about? Brian, we got to get over to this one, and so that was very, very eye-opening. And this was from probably 15 years ago now. My son was in high school at the time. So, about 15 years ago. Subsequent to that, when I started the MLM with my son, was Think and Grow Rich. Very, very impactful. And then Science of Growing Rich, very impactful. And then I read a lot of other, business books. But in terms of the big shift, definitely Kiyosaki's books that was the shift. That was the key turning in the lock. That's like, okay, a different game is going to happen now. Even though we're in real estate, we had an automotive business, but that one just kind of unlocked my understanding into a different level and context.
Yep, I love it. And I know obviously you're a voracious reader. Any particular? Do you listen to podcasts? Any podcasts that you like, or other sources of just information that you love?
I really, really like Inc. magazine, Fast Company, Entrepreneur magazine. They're just squeezed in little moments throughout the day, kind of a thing, and I pick up an awful lot. I'm a fast reader, not that that's. They had those fast reading classes when I was growing up in elementary school. So, but all to say more to the point is that I can consume a lot of information pretty fast in between breaks. And I love reading all the examples of different success stories. So, I guess because I'm in front of the computer so much, when I'm away, I'm not listening to a podcast so much as I am. I'm now in the physical world, which is like a real treat, and I'm holding something physical like a magazine. Right.
Gotcha. Well, I just really appreciate it. Any other maybe questions that I missed, or just critical elements that you'd love to share with a lot of people? Probably most of the people tuning in are people that are in network marketing currently, of varying levels of success. Any just like key points or that you'd like to share that we haven't hit on yet?
Yeah, I would say in closing, because I've worked with virtually hundreds of thousands of people, not of course closely, but through my books and then through my communities, tens of thousands of people, is my general observation, that being more so from someone transitioning from an employee mindset into an entrepreneurial mindset or business mindset, there are significant internal changes that take place. And oftentimes what can skew that or be problematic for people are proper expectations. And I mean, no one likes to get schooled on the fact that now here it's going to take some time and, this kind of a thing. But truly, your internal processing, your way of assimilating information and coming to decisions truly is vastly different as you develop into a business owner as opposed to an employee. And I found this, it was through a conversation, it was in 2011, I was building a particular funnel, and I'll never forget talking to a couple of gentlemen, both within the same week, and I think that's why it stood out so much. And they said, Ann, my whole life, I've only been an employee, and I don't even know how to do this and what to do, as in they're basically saying, I've never had to be the boss and tell myself what to do. And it just took me back on my heels. I was like, wow. I had to kind of recalibrate, so to speak, and realize a lot of people have never looked in the mirror and said, hey, if it's going to happen, it's up to me. And instead they're accustomed to a behavioral mindset of I sit down and someone tells me what to do. And that's embedded in them for decades. But now I sit down and I'm the one who has to structure my time. They don't know how to even set proper goals and objectives and reverse engineer projected goals 6 months out. I mean, all these dynamics.
Right.
And that can be a problem. There's this gap in this mindset development that has to happen, and it comes down to what are the expectations that they have for themselves, what are the expectations that people have told them, and setting up faulty expectations for people can be a really serious problem, because then people feel they are falling short and not meeting the mark and all this kind of a thing, when in fact there's a tremendous internal process and growth that's going to happen, and you have to be okay with that. And you mentioned a mentor earlier. I can't say enough how important that is. Training is great, and there's a lot of training all over the place. There is nothing to compare to a mentor. and a mentor where you can see them really, they're doing the deal and you're watching them in motion, like what I did with my kids. They were working with me side by side. That's where you can make that shift at a better pace, at a deeper understanding, when you see it modeled for you in motion, and then you can start to make that mindset shift so that you can get better, proper expectations. So I guess what I'm getting at is, as people approach, I'm going to guess a good number of the folks are newer because there are floods of people coming into this space.
Right.
It is a great time, both to be an entrepreneur. It's a wide open door, and it's extremely needful. We have millions of people entering into this space. But just know you're going to be learning new skill sets. And I always tell people, boy, be ready to have patience. Not so much with the expectations of, boy, they said they were going to do this for me, and this, and expectations all internal or external. But those expectations for patience, it really is internal more than anything. And boy,
Right.
It's for myself over and over and over. I have to have patience. I have to have patience. And you have to, sometimes you have to take deep breaths too, by the way, and get some oxygen into your system, because you were thinking it was supposed to go this way, and, there's so many external variables. But I know I said quite a bit there. Maybe it was too disparate, but that internal development can't be overstated. I am nowhere near the same person I was 10 years ago. Not by a landslide. And some people aren't comfortable with that either. That change, but change is a must. Like they say, what got you to your first million won't get you to the 10 million.
Yeah.
So true.
And, you just on that topic of having a mentor, of course, there's a ton of accountability that comes with that helps with that whole process that you talked about of shifting to an entrepreneur from an employee mindset. But now, obviously, that if somebody kind of doesn't have a mentor, I think this is such an important topic. I think having mentorship is so key. But a lot of people, it's like, okay, well, I guess I need a mentor. So, how do I find a mentor? You can certainly, somebody could enroll in like a coaching program or something like that. But outside of that, are there any particular ways that you have sort of earned the mentoring that you've gotten over the years from people that have mentored you? How did those relationships kind of form?
For one, it was just pure good circumstance. When I first came online, I found my mentor straight out of the gate. I was looking at two different programs, actually. The one was just full of hype, and I just couldn't buy into it. And the other one was more reasonable and balanced. They talk about training, developing professionalism. I thought, now that one makes sense. It was logical to me, so I moved forward. And now that mentor has now been my head coach in my program. We work, just today, we're together about 3 hours discussing different things. So who was my mentor now is my head coach in my program. I think really to find a good mentor is show up Johnny on the spot. Don't expect a handout. For me, I was just working my fanny off, and he saw me working my fanny off, getting results, and he invited me into his mastermind. So you can't come in with a mindset that you think you're going to access some high-level mentor without, as Robert Kiyosaki says in one of his books, some guy wanted help with the real estate. Hey, how about I tag along with you, Robert? He's like, no.
Right. Like, mentors aren't out looking for mentees. They're not like this eager. Right.
You got to show up as a star. I train on that. But I want to get down to at a practical level, if I could, about, you mentioned the keyword of accountability. So one thing in our program that we do on a daily basis, and it actually came from internally within my company, it's called an end-of-day report. So on my private group page, people post their end-of-day report. It's accountability to themselves. It's accountability to the community. Now, where I scale that, for example, in my mentorship program is, for one, they all are in an assigned accountability group with their peers. There's a tremendous value of being in a peer group, aside from even being attached in some way, shape, or form to a mentor. Never discount the power of a peer group as well. They also send in an accountability report at the end of every week. My head coach reviews them, sends them on to me, and I do a video review of their weekly accountability reports. So it's a very laid out plan, because this is how it works. People do have to be reporting. And I'm going to tell you this, most people hire a coach, and this is included especially in the sports world, because they need someone to hold them accountable.
Right.
That's the main reason of the vast number of coaching clients. I just need someone to hold me to task and kick me in the butt when I need it.
Yep.
And that's why they hire coaches. So in our program, we set up all these mechanisms, so to speak, and our EOD training and the challenge that we had was, over the years, the most popular of all. Why? Because it's an intrinsic human need that maybe perhaps because of our school systems and whatnot, people need external forces to help them get the job done. And it just appears to be a fact of life.
That one of my mentors always used to say, the best golfer in the world has a coach. The best swimmer in the world has a coach. You know, it's absolutely true. And you're right. A huge piece of that is just the accountability.
Yeah. And at that level, it's that fine tuning and tweaking. So they've really arrived and they want someone to do just that little tweaking adjustment, which takes your game to a whole nother level. At a more grassroots coming in kind of level, it's that accountability. So we have that integrated all throughout our system because of that struggle that people have.
Awesome. Well, I love it, Ann. I can't tell you again. I'm so appreciative of you just participating in this project and giving your time to be in this book and on this recording here for everybody to benefit from. Lastly, we've mentioned them a couple times, but just places for people to learn more about you, your books, your websites, any places that you love for people to go to check out more about the incredible Ann Sieg.
You can go to my Facebook page, just look up Ann Sieg, and then my blog is therenegadeblog.com. So www.therenegadeblog.com. In terms of my book, which helps, it's a primer, foundational primer, it's therenegadenetworkmarketer.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And, look forward to interacting with you down the road.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
Hey, this is Pat Petrini again, and just to wrap up really quickly, I just want to remind you that if you liked this interview, we've got a whole bunch more. If you go to our website, it's tmm4networkmarketers.com. That's TMM, like the Miracle Morning, FOR, networkmarketers.com. And of course, if you haven't checked out the book yet, you can go to, first off, you get 2 free chapters of the book at tmm4networkmarketers.com. And then, of course, if you want to get the book, go to Amazon and just search for The Miracle Morning for networkmarketers.com, and you can get it paperback, Kindle, whatever. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you really enjoy the rest of the content that we've made available for you. Thanks a lot. Again, my name is Pat Petrini, and I'll see you on the next interview.